Once upon a time, there was a Neverwinter module called Sharandar. No, not that Sharandar. Oh, this is going to be confusing. So it was 2020. The world was in the grips of a pandemic. People sought comfort however they could find it, as long as it didn't involve going outside. One thing my family did was find Neverwinter. Back then, levels went to 80. And you could actually find cool things if you went exploring away from the fairy trail. Back then, Neverwinter had things like experience points, dungeons, and dragons. It also had a mod called Sharandar. Was Neverwinter perfect back then? It's kind of like asking people when Saturday Night Live was funny. You're not going to learn anything about Saturday Night Live. You're just going to find out when the person you're talking to was in their 20s. You'll find people that will tell you that in 2020, Neverwinter was at its high point. It was super fun and they loved it. You'll find other people that tell you that it died with Module 16 or Module 18. Kick over enough rocks, you'll probably find that guy who's hated it since the beginning and just won't quit for whatever reason. But this is when I came back to Neverwinter after like an 8-year hiatus, give or take. There was a lockdown. My family needed something fun to do. My wife and daughter found this MMO that I had played once a long time earlier, and we started playing it as a family. And I set a goal, something to look forward to. I was anxious to play Sharandar. See, my wife had started playing before me, and my daughter started playing with her. And so by the time I was leveling up my first character, she was exploring the Feywild, which was the first mod released after the initial release of Neverwinter. And it looked really cool. And I did my best not to spoil the game because there were really neat NPCs here and she was doing some very interesting things and exploring areas that looked so different from where I was in the city of Neverwinter or under it in the chasm or just wandering around Black Dagger or places like that. And I really wanted to experience it fresh. I didn't want it to be something that I had already seen before. And then the blogs started to appear, talking about the new adventure system, talking about vaulting different adventure zones, and shelving the entire first mod of Sharandar. Naturally, a lot of people were upset by this, and the mods acknowledged that that was expected. But these decisions had been made across a couple of different reasons. These were zones that fewer players frequented. The visual fidelity of those zones didn't measure up to what Neverwinter was producing in 2021. In short, these parts of the game had to be cut loose. If I remember correctly, the Sharandar mod started at level 60. And I hit level 60 the day before Sharandar was shelved. It had been my goal the entire time I had been building up my first character to get there and experience this really cool adventure. And then this launched, Sharandar. It's just called Sharandar. And it's about trouble coming to the Feywild in the same region that you previously rescued. It's full of NPCs and references to events in the old campaign. They deleted the original Sharandar in order to release part 2 of that story. And since I had never played part 1, I spent the entire time I was playing part 2 thinking, why is this person being called my old friend? Why am I being told that I remember how tough this character was the first time we fought him? Why am I being thanked for things I never got the chance to do? Who releases Empire Strikes Back after removing A New Hope forever from people's libraries. I mean, sure, I get it. You're running a business, and if nobody's playing the game that you've got out there, you've got to make some changes. But isn't there a better way than making a sequel full of references to the game that you just removed because nobody was playing it? I mean, it seems like there's got to be a better way to go about it than that. Look, I love Neverwinter. I got sucked into it during a vulnerable period of all of our lives, and I haven't been able to walk away. PlayStation says I've got like 5.5 hours a day over the last 3, 4 years. But just because I love a game doesn't mean I'm blind when they make mistakes. And what did they leave behind? Well, that's the good part. We've got Master of the Hunt, which is actually one of the most enjoyable skirmishes in Neverwinter right now, where you and 4 others go on a very quick whirlwind combat tour, facing down the Huntsman's hounds and also the Cyclops and the Fomorians that have driven those hounds to fury, and then finally in the end, the Huntsman himself. And then there's Malabog's Castle, which is awkwardly phrased as something that happened in the past, and you can go and you can face this thing in the past, except this is a quest all about how Valindra Shadowmantle gave a dragon to Malabog, something that happened right after you finished Whispering Caverns by Jewel of the North standards, but before you went to the Dread Ring. I don't know. I guess it's ancient, present, past, or something. But anyway, it's still a cool dungeon. It's a really neat romp through this Feywild castle. There's catapults to destroy and Fomorian to fight, phase spiders, mimics. At the end, you fight Malabog himself. Valindra makes an appearance. She leaves you to fight the dragon. It's just a really neat wrap up, which makes sense because it used to be the dungeon that concluded the entire campaign. So now the campaign is gone. You get to play the conclusion of it anyway, and you get to adventure through the sequel without ever having met any of the characters in it. Oh, and please don't try to tell me that because Marasara shows up in the Well of Dragons that she knows us as wonderful heroes. Marasara shows up in the Well of Dragons because we saved her in the original Sharandar. Now she's showing up in the Well of Dragons out of the blue, gives us the most annoying quest in Tyranny of Dragons with that frickin' wolf ghost, and then shows up again talking like we're great friends in the new Sharandar campaign. If you've ever seen a time travel movie that does it wrong and creates a paradox, that's kind of what you've got here. The one thing that I'm holding on to is that when all of these adventure zones were shelved or vaulted, the promise was made that some of them would return. And we've already seen that with Rothe Valley. They brought it back. They turned it into an adventure, which means they gutted about 60% of the content. And then they also added item level capping, which made it infinitely less enjoyable. But it did come back. And so I'm still holding out hope that someday we'll find out that Sharandar's coming back, classic Sharandar, and they will respect the audience enough to trust that we can handle the complexity of playing an adventure that occurred earlier than another adventure. And that, my friends, will be an awesome day. I just want to play the damn module.